Hello everybody, let's enjoy in reading the Bible. We continue with the book of Exodus. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites to turn about and camp before Hahiroth between Migdol and the sea. You shall camp in front of Baal Zephon, just opposite by the sea. Pharaoh will then say, 'The Israelites are wandering about aimlessly in the land. The desert has closed in on them. Thus will I make Pharaoh so obstinate that he will pursue them. Then I will receive glory through Pharaoh and all his army, and the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord.'" This the Israelites did. When it was reported to the king of Egypt that the people had fled, Pharaoh and his servants changed their minds about them. "What have we done?" they exclaimed. "Why, we have released Israel from our service." So Pharaoh made his chariots ready and mastered his soldiers. 600 first-class chariots and all the other chariots of Egypt with warriors on them all. So obstinate had the Lord made Pharaoh that he pursued the Israelites even while they were marching away in triumph. The Egyptians then pursued them. Pharaoh's whole army, his horses, chariots, and charioteers caught up with them as they lay encamped by the sea at Pi-Hahiroth in front of Baal-Zephon. Pharaoh was already near when the Israelites looked up and saw that the Egyptians were on the march in pursuit of them. In great fright they cried out to the Lord, and they complained to Moses, were there no burial places in Egypt that you had bring us out here to die in the desert? Why did you do this to us? Why did you bring us out of Egypt? Did we not tell you this in Egypt when we said, 'Leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians'? Far better for us to be the slaves of the Egyptians than to die in the desert." But Moses answered the people, "Fear not, stand your ground and you will see the victory the Lord will win for you today. These Egyptians whom you see today you will never see again. The Lord himself will fight for you, you have only to keep still." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to go forward. And you lift up your staff and with hand outstretched over the sea, split the sea in two, that the Israelites may pass through it on dry land. But I will make the Egyptians so obstinate that they will go in after them. Then I will receive glory through Pharaoh and all his army, his chariots and charioteers. The Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord when I receive glory through Pharaoh and his chariots and charioteers." The angel of God, who had been leading Israel's camp, now moved and went around behind them. The column of cloud also, leaving the front, took up its place behind them, so that it came between the camp, the Egyptians, and that of Israel. But the cloud now became dark, and thus the night passed without the rival camps coming any closer together all night long. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord swept the sea with a strong east wind throughout the night, and so turned it into dry land. When the water was thus divided, the Israelites marched into the midst of the sea on dry land, with the water like a wall to their right and to their left. The Egyptians followed in pursuit. All Pharaoh's horses and chariots and charioteers went after them right into the midst of the sea. In the night watch just before dawn, the Lord cast through the column of the fiery cloud upon the Egyptians' force a glance that threw it into a panic, and he so clogged their chariot wheels that they could hardly drive. With that, the Egyptians sounded the retreat before Israel, because the Lord was fighting for them against the Egyptians. Then the Lord told Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, that the water may flow back upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots and their charioteers." So Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and at dawn the sea flowed back to its normal depth. The Egyptians were fleeing head on toward the sea when the Lord hurled them into its midst. As the water flowed back, it covered the chariots and the charioteers of Pharaoh's whole army, which had followed the Israelites into the sea. Not a single one of them escaped. But the Israelites had marched on dry land through the midst of the sea, with the water like a wall to their right and to their left. Thus the Lord saved Israel on that day from the power of the Egyptians. When Israel saw the Egyptians lying dead on the seashore and beheld the great power that the Lord had shown against the Egyptians, they feared the Lord and believed in him and his servant Moses. Then Moses and the Israelites sang this song to the Lord: "I will sing to the Lord, for he is gloriously triumphant. Horse and chariot he has cast into the sea. My strength and my courage is the Lord, and he has been my Savior. He is my God, I praise him. The God of my father, I extol him. The Lord is a warrior, Lord is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and army he hurled into the sea. The elite of his officers were submerged in the Red Sea. The flood waters covered them, they sank into the depth like a stone. Your right hand, O Lord, magnificent in power, your right hand, O Lord, has shattered the enemy. In your great majesty, you overthrew your adversaries. You loosed your wrath to consume them like stubble. At the breath of your anger, the waters piled up, the flowing waters stood like a mound, the flood waters congealed in the midst of the sea. The enemy boasted, I will pursue and overtake them, I will divide the spoils and have my fill of them, I will draw my sword, my hand shall despoil them. When your wind blew, the sea covered them, like lead they sank in the mighty waters. Who is like to you among the gods, O Lord? Who is like to you, magnificent in holiness? O terrible in renown, worker of wonders, when you stretched out your right hand, the earth swallowed them. In your mercy you led the people you redeemed, in your strength you guided them to your holy dwelling. The nations heard and quaked, anguish gripped the dwellers in Philistia. Then were the princes of Edom dismayed, trembling seized the chieftains of Moab, all the dwellers in Canaan melted away. Terror and dread fell upon them. By the might of your arm they were frozen like stone, while your people, O Lord, passed over, while the people you had made your own passed over. And you brought them in and planted them on the mountain of your inheritance, the place where you made your seat, O Lord, the sanctuary, O Lord, which your hands established. The Lord shall reign forever and ever. They sang thus because Pharaoh's horses and chariots and charioteers had gone into the sea, and the Lord made the waters of the sea flow back upon them, though the Israelites had marched on dry land through the midst of the sea. The prophetess Miriam, Aaron's sister, took a tambourine in her hand, while all the women went out after her with tambourines dancing, and she led them in the refrain, Sing to the Lord, for he is gloriously triumphant, horse and chariot he has cast into the sea. Then Moses led Israel forward from the Red Sea, and they marched out to the desert of Shur. After traveling for 3 days through the desert without finding water, they arrived at Marah, where they could not drink the water because it was too bitter. Hence this place was called Marah. As the people grumbled against Moses, saying, What are we to drink? he appealed to the Lord, who pointed out to him a certain piece of wood. When he threw this into the water became fresh. It was here that the Lord, in making rules and regulations for them, put them to the test. If you really listen to the voice of the Lord your God, he told them, and do what is right in his eyes, if you heed his commandments and keep all his precepts, I will not afflict you with any of the diseases with which I afflicted the Egyptians, for I, the Lord, am your healer. Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, and they camped there near the water. Having set out from Elim, the whole Israelite community came into the desert of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after their departure from the land of Egypt. Here in the desert, the whole Israelite community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, Would that we had died at the Lord's hand in the land of Egypt, as we sat by our flesh pots and ate our fill of bread. But you had to lead us into this desert to make the whole community die of famine. Then the Lord said to Moses, I will now rain down bread from heaven for you. Each day the people are to go out and gather their daily portion. Thus will I test them to see whether they follow my instructions or not. On the 6th day, however, when they prepare what they bring in, let it be twice as much as they gather on the other days. So Moses and Aaron told all the Israelites, at evening you will know that it was the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And in the morning you will see the glory of the Lord as he heeds your grumbling against him. But what are we that you should grumble against us? When the Lord gives you flesh to eat in the evening, continued Moses, and in the morning you fill your fill of bread, as he heeds the grumbling you utter against him, what then are we? Your grumbling is not against us, but against the Lord. Then Moses said to Aaron, Tell the whole Israelite community, present yourself before the Lord, for he has heard your grumbling. When Aaron announced this to the whole Israelite community, they turned toward the desert, and the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. The Lord spoke to Moses and said, I have heard the grumbling of the Israelites. Tell them, in the evening twilight you shall eat flesh, and in the morning you shall have your fill of bread, so that you may know that I, the Lord, am your God. In the evening quail came up and covered the camp. In the morning a dew lay all about the camp, and when the dew evaporated, there on the surface on the desert were fine flakes like hoarfrost on the ground. On seeing it, the Israelites asked one another, What is this? For they did not know what it was. But Moses told them, This is the bread which the Lord has given you to eat. Now this is what the Lord has commanded. So gather it, that everyone has enough to eat, an omer for each person, as many of you as there are, each man providing for those of his own tent. The Israelites did so. Some gathered a large and some a small amount. But when they measured it out by the omer, he who had gathered a large amount did not have too much, and he who had gathered a small amount did not have too little. They so gathered that everyone had enough to eat. Moses also told them, Let no one keep any of it over until tomorrow morning. But they would not listen to him. When some kept a part of it over until the following morning, it became wormy and rotten. Therefore Moses was displeased with them. Morning after morning they gathered it, till each had enough to eat, but when the sun grew hot, the manna melted away. On the 6th day they gathered twice as much food, 2 omers for each person. When all the leaders of the community came and reported this to Moses, he told them, "That is what the Lord prescribed. Tomorrow is a day of complete rest, the Sabbath, sacred to the Lord. You may either bake or boil the manna as you please, but whatever is left put away and keep for tomorrow." When they put it away for the morrow, as Moses commanded, it did not become rotten or wormy. Moses then said, "Eat it today, for today is the Sabbath of the Lord. On this day you will not find any of it on the ground. On the other 6 days you can gather it, but on the 7th day, the Sabbath, none of it will be there." Still on the 7th day some of the people went out to gather it, although they did not find any. Then the Lord said to Moses, "How long will you refuse to keep my commandments and laws? Take note, the Lord has given you the Sabbath. That is why on the 6th day he gives you food for 2 days. On the 7th day everyone is to stay home and no one is to go out." After that the people rested on the 7th day. The Israelites called this food manna. It was like reindeer seed but white, and it tasted like wafers made with honey. Moses said, "This is what the Lord has commanded. Keep an omer full of manna for your descendants, that they may see what food I gave you to eat in the desert when I brought you out of the land of Egypt." Moses then told Aaron, "Take an urn and put an omer of manna in it. Then place it before the Lord is safekeeping for your descendants." So Aaron placed it in front of the commandments for safekeeping, as the Lord has commanded Moses. The Israelites ate this manna for 40 years until they came to settled land. They ate manna until they reached the borders of Canaan. An omer is 1/10 of an ephah. From the desert of Sin, the whole Israel community journeyed by stages as the Lord directed and encamped at Rephidim. Here there was no water for the people to drink. They quarreled therefore with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Moses replied, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you put the Lord to a test?" Here then, in their thirst for water, the people grumbled against Moses, saying, "Why did you ever make us leave Egypt? What is just to have us die here of thirst with our children and our livestock?" So Moses cried out to the Lord, "What shall I do with these people? A little more and they will stone me." The Lord answered Moses, "Go over there in front of the people along with some of the elders of Israel, holding in your hand and you go the staff with which you struck the river. I will be standing there in front of you on the rock in Horeb. Strike the rock and the water will flow from it for the people to drink." This Moses did in the presence of the elders of Israel. The place was called Massah and Meribah because the Israelites quarreled there and tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord in our midst or not?" At Rephidim, Amalek came and waged war against Israel. Moses therefore said to Joshua, "Pick out certain men and tomorrow go out and engage Amalek in battle. I will be standing on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand." So Joshua did as Moses told him. He engaged Amalek in battle after Moses had climbed to the top of the hill with Aaron and Hur. As long as Moses kept his hands raised up, Israel had the better of the fight, but when he let his hands rest, Amalek had the better of the fight. Moses' hands, however, grew tired, so they put a rock in place for him to sit on. Meanwhile, Aaron and Hur supported his hands, one on one side and one on the other, so that his hands remained steady till sunset. And Joshua moved down Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Write this down in a document as something to be remembered and recite it in the ears of Joshua. I will completely blot out the memory of Amalek from under the heavens." Moses also built an altar there, which is called Yavesh Nishi, for he said, the Lord takes in hand his banner, the Lord will war against Amalek through the centuries. Now Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, the priest of Midian, heard of all that God had done for Moses and for his people Israel, how the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt. So his father-in-law Jethro took along Zipporah, Moses' wife, whom Moses had sent back to him, and her 2 sons. One of these was called Gershom, for he said, I am a stranger in a foreign land. The other was called Eleazar, for he said, my father's God is my help. My father's God is my helper. He has rescued me from Pharaoh's sword. Together with Moses' wife and sons, then his father-in-law Jethro came to him in the desert where he was encamped near the mountain of God. And he sent word to Moses, I, Jethro, your father-in-law, am coming to you along with your wife and her 2 sons. Moses went out to meet his father-in-law, bowed down before him and kissed him. Having greeted each other, they went into the tent. Moses then told his father-in-law of all that the Lord had done to Pharaoh and the Egyptians for the sake of Israel, and of all the hardships they had to endure on their journey, and how the Lord had came to their rescue. Jethro rejoiced over all the goodness that the Lord had shown Israel in rescuing them from the hands of the Egyptians. Blessed be the Lord, he said, who has rescued his people from the hands of Pharaoh and the Egyptians. Now I know that the Lord is deity great beyond any other, for he took occasion of their being dealt with insolently to deliver the people from the power of the Egyptians. Then Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, brought a holocaust and other sacrifices to God, and Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to participate with Moses' father-in-law in the meal before God. The next day Moses sat in judgment for the people, who waited about him from morning until evening. When his father-in-law saw all that he was doing for the people, he inquired, what sort of thing is this that you are doing for the people? Why do you sit alone while all the people have to stand about you from morning till evening? Moses answered his father-in-law, the people come to me to consult God. Whenever they have a disagreement, they came to me to have me settle the matter between them and make known to them God's decisions and regulations. You are not acting wisely, his father-in-law replied. You will surely wear yourself out, and not only yourself, but also these people with you. The task is too heavy for you. You cannot do it alone. Now listen to me, and I will give you some advice, that God may be with you. Act as the people's representative before God, bringing to him whatever they have to say. Enlighten them in regard to the decisions and regulations, showing them how they are to live and what they are to do. But you should also look among all the people for able and God-fearing men, trustworthy men who hate dishonest gain, and set them as officers over groups of thousands, of hundreds, of fifties, and of tens. Let these men render decisions for the people in all ordinary cases. More important cases they should refer to you, but all the lesser cases they can settle themselves. Thus your burden will be lightened, since they will bear it with you. If you do this, when God gives you orders, you will be able to stand the strain, and all these people will go home satisfied. Moses followed the advice of his father-in-law and did all that he had suggested. He picked out able men from all Israel and put them in charge of the people as officers over groups of thousands, of hundreds, of fifties, and of tens. They render decisions for the people in all ordinary cases. The more difficult cases they refer to Moses, but all the lesser cases they settle themselves. Then Moses bade farewell to his father-in-law, who went off to his own country. Okay, thank you. We continue I hope next week. So what we were reading today, we actually can see throughout all the history, and even today we can even find ourselves in all of this. What Israelites did in the desert, they wanted rather slavery than to lose bread and water. Yes, we also, it seems, many times agreed to many kinds of slavery just to be sure that we will have bread and water, that we'll have something for eat and drink. But we should also think that there are things that God wants from us, and so it's not all in bread and water. So we need to listen. We need to listen the voice of the God, and we listen the voice of the God when we follow His signs, His light, and when we are joyful, even in the midst of the pain and in the midst of the many problems. So don't give up. Be joyful, be happy, and we continue our fight for us and for the whole for the whole world, that one day we can meet God in the heaven. Thank you very much. See you next time.